I appreciate everybody joining the PowerPoint presentation and the class that we have on mutual aid resources. What I wanted to just go over, first of all, I'm Kathy Croteau, mutual aid chair for the Building Officials Association of Florida. And it's my job as a chair to make sure that if somebody does request resources through one of our processes that we've put together, that we're able to try and accumulate enough resources to send to that jurisdiction's way. Obviously, our main function is hurricanes. That's the event that lands up being our number one response. But that is my job here with the Building Officials Association of Florida. I've done and responded to numerous events over the last few years, as well as responding personally before being the mutual aid chair. So I'm here today to tell you, give you some information on what to expect when you're requesting resources and when you're looking to provide assistance to other communities that may need your help. Mutual aid is basically helping one jurisdiction out that is in need, and it's a reciprocal exchange of resources. So that's what we're going to go through. So like I said, we're here to help a little bit. We're just going to tell you how it works, what to expect, just some tips on being prepared and what that preparedness looks like, depending on whether it's like I said, the receiving or the sending community, some of the processes that we go through behind the scenes, a little bit about the state of Florida emergency management and recovery process, and then how to request it, and then additional training resources, that new ones that are coming your way, some that have been around that are being kind of revitalized to provide your staff and you to be more prepared to respond to an event. So first of all, if anybody doesn't know this gentleman in the state of Florida, I'd be surprised, but it's just kind of, number one, don't panic. It can be very stressful, but we're here to help. And if Jim Cantori shows up, unfortunately, it's never usually a good sign, but hopefully your community's prepared. And when he arrives, you're just letting Mother Nature take its course, and you're going to come out good on the other end. So being prepared, obviously, I just put this little projected Irma's path in there just because you never know where it's going to go. But you want to be prepared. So that's kind of been clear with several events starting from the early 90s till now. You never, it looks like it's going one place, and as we're watching it, it's moving. And the thing you don't want to have to be dealing with is that you just didn't think it was coming to you, and your jurisdiction isn't prepared. So number one, all I can say is that make sure you have a personal plan, preparedness plan ready, because if the disaster hits your area, you're going to need that, because you're going to need to respond to your community's needs. I'm sure that if you are employed with a jurisdiction or plan on helping one, they already have told you in case of an emergency, you're going to be required to be reporting to work. So just make sure that that you have that conversation with your family, who's taking care of who. I've been through two myself now, and the last one being the mutual aid chair at the same time. So you just want to make sure that your family's safe. Any people, whether they're older, younger, or just family members need help, you want to make sure that you have a game plan, whether or not your generator's running, training people on how to do that. You're going to be stressed out. even more because you know that once it comes, you won't be there to maybe be able to put out some of those fires that come in on your family side. So just make sure that you start thinking about a personal plan, and don't forget about that, as well as what you're thinking about you're going to be doing for your community. So kind of just a couple things to be aware of while you're watching the projected path of the hurricane or the event. You're going to want to make sure 72 to 48 hours in advance you're notifying contractors within your jurisdiction. You can do that through social. I would advise you to do it using all the communication lines that you have, but social media, e-blasts, getting your staff out there and making sure that they're boots on the ground, getting things cleaned up. Nobody can plan for what happened in Ian to Fort Myers Beach and any of those beach communities in Lee, Collier, and Charlotte County. But if it's a smaller storm, you can make sure that all that loose construction debris that's laying around is picked up, that your contractors are doing their job. You're sharing that information. It can be directly to your contractors, or it can be through your local contractors association for them to help spread the word. Normally contractors want to be good neighbors, so they're usually pretty responsive to making sure that there's nothing out in the way. And, you know, to a point, there's only so many things you can clean up, but sometimes bringing down all of the tiles on the roof is not an option, but if they can bundle them and leave them on the roof in certain areas, that is always helps as well. And we've seen that fare pretty well in the storm. You also want to make sure that all the erosion controls are in place. They're not down prior to the storm, because if it is a smaller storm where the water will be heading in, you'll be able to stop that water from either escaping out into your waterways and or out into the roadways, and just trying to keep your site from providing that soil erosion outside of it. Couple other things that you need to do internally. So that's kind of notifying your industry that, hey, you guys need to be prepared for the storm. But inside your office, there's also preparation going on. So at this point, 72 to 48 hours, you should have already got together. Maybe at the beginning of hurricane season, your office is getting together and doing some refresher training on damage assessment. If they are, it's always a good time right before the storm to work out all those bugs. If you're using a computer software, which a lot of us use different computer software programs now for damage assessment reporting, which is a great tool. Hard to be able to tell whether a 9 is a 5 when you're trying to write lists down on addressing. But those softwares can always help, whether you're using a purchase software like, I don't know, I know there's a few out there, Crisis Track, Survey 123, and FEMA has its own program itself, the Substantial Damage Determination Calculator. That's a free program that you can use from FEMA. All of them require integration with your property appraiser to be able to pull that information over, even the FEMA tool. So you'll want to make sure that those things are refreshed, or you're looking at getting something in place and getting that done ahead of time. Even if the storm doesn't reach your area, you're prepared, and you've kind of at least a little bit of the stress can be down. You're also going to make sure that you have some FEMA daily logs ready, printed. You're always going to be in the recovery section of your division, whatever EOC you are. Damage assessment is part of the recovery section. So having enough of those FEMA daily logs, filling them out properly for reimbursement is critical. I'm not going to go too much into it, but even putting down your lunches in there. And if you go to some type of planned lunch, maybe your municipality is going to be serving lunch somewhere. They should actually be taking names down during that lunch, because when FEMA comes back and they want to get reimbursed for the food they fed all these people, they're going to want to know who ate it. And they're not going to want you to make up a list. They're going to want to know who was actually there. So you're going to just want to document everything. You still do want paper backup, because what we noticed was, even though the software systems that we had can function in an offline mode, which is great, it's still great to have that paper backup, because if you're a small community and you don't have any software, it's always good to lean on Big Brother, being the county. So if there's something in your jurisdiction that you don't have, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to a county EOC. They're usually or they're almost always receptive to trying to make sure that the communities within their jurisdiction have the right tools and are provided the proper resources. Creating a kit for a damage assessment is a great idea. Having that kit ready to go before you're ready to hit the road. I've created a couple of kits, just some basic stuff. If you have an iPad or a tablet, some type of clipboard to write on, your AC adapters, so that way you can get the power out of the truck if there is no power around. Making sure you have plenty of placards to be able to mark something if it's safe or unsafe or requires limited entry. Some of the things people don't think about: bug spray, sunscreen. Obviously, safety vest helps identify you, because if you are out after a storm, you are going to get random people, once the roads are opened, that are just asking you questions. When's the garbage truck coming to pick up the debris? That'll be a big one. You may not know the answer to that, but they're going to look for a safety vest. They'll at least know that the city people or the county people are out, taking a look at the community, assessing the damage to make sure that you recover quickly. I put toilet paper in there because that is a big one. You're going to see that once you get on some of these barrier islands and you start doing your damage assessment, if there is no type of facilities around because the lack of water and or electricity, there may be some porta-johns laying around, but having something out there is better than nothing when you can't get back off the island because something's happened or now the road's closed down. That's key. Also, employees, when you're out there, just make sure you bring your own water and something to eat, because your jurisdiction may have scheduled or prepared meals, but that doesn't necessarily mean you'll be able to make it there. That doesn't mean that it'll be enough. Just making sure that you have your own, you're prepared yourself. Again, takes some stress off of you and doesn't require you to be running around, not knowing where you're at in the area and where these other distribution areas are. That'll make it a lot easier. And then you don't have to worry about that. This kind of way the process works is a jurisdiction's going to evaluate their resources. They're going to see if they're not, if they have them. If you're a city or a town and you don't have the resources because you're smaller, you're going to request those resources first from your county. If the level of destruction is large and you know that the county's probably already taxed with their resources, you can go straight to the state through your EOC. But almost every county EOC will have some type of liaison for each jurisdiction there, and you'll want to be able to take advantage of that, because you'll have multiple people in those county or multi-jurisdictional EOCs. Once they have, if they can meet your needs, then great. If they don't, then they're going to go to the state. Then that's where the state recovery section chief will then reach out to their resources, and that having BOAF as one of those resources. Currently, I reached out to the section chief for the state of Florida, Chastity a couple weeks ago, and then she reached out to me again because actually the state of Iowa has had some flooding, and they know that Florida is properly prepared, so they had asked for some assistance from us. They have not moved forward with that, but they at least know that we know what to do when in case of an emergency. So what we do use is called a statewide mutual aid agreement, an SMAA. You'll hear that term. We'll use those agreements that the state has within all the jurisdictions, the counties that are in it. And that's what we use for the exchange of these mutual services. These services are reimbursable functions for different jurisdictions. They do require the use of completing what's called a Form B. And that Form B will actually give you the authorization, give you cost estimates. That is something that both myself and or the state early on in activation phases would be able to help you with filling those forms out. There's a section that the requesting jurisdiction will fill out. There's a section then that will be completed by the sending jurisdiction, and then the final section acknowledging what those costs are and what the needs are. All I can say is be as clear as possible in those requests, and I'll go over that in a little bit as well. But the more precise you can be on what the requests are, the quicker you're going to get the resources, because the less questions I have to ask or anybody else. And we do know that it changes. I could have a request for 10 people, and by the time I call them, they've already identified a couple resources, or they're looking at needing more than that. So it's a fluid situation. So whenever we ask for assistance, you're going to find out that things just change. Recovery starts occurring from the minute people are responding. So just be flexible with it. This form makes sure that the requesting jurisdiction for the resources knows exactly what the expectations are of them, how much money will need to be reimbursed, whether or not the sending jurisdiction decides to charge for any of those. We've had jurisdictions where they've put 0 for the cost of sending someone because the jurisdiction has the availability to assist, and they want to be able to just be a good neighbor, and hopefully someday somebody does the same thing for them. So you can put exactly the costs, including the vehicle, the tablet, the phone, the individual, anything else, the accommodations, if accommodations are a chargeable thing, if there's not a base camp, all of that can be included in there. Any of it can be taken out. It's up to the sending jurisdiction to determine that. So just kind of a little bit more, the requesting, it's an agreement between the sending jurisdiction and the receiving jurisdiction, and they are agreeing to reimburse the person who's sending the additional resources. And like I said, it can vary based on what the jurisdiction has. Obviously, what maybe someone in the Miami area may be totally different than someone up in the Panhandle area as far as compensation and vehicles and what they're able to do. But almost always when we request resources, the sending person needs to provide a vehicle to get there, and obviously a phone, at a minimum, cell phone to communicate. This isn't something that has to be reset up every year. It's something that just continually keeps renewing every year. So where do you start as the jurisdiction who's requesting resources? You start in your EOC. So the EOC will have a program called Web EOC. It's a program that the state uses for resources. And what you'll do there is you will request through what's called a mission. You will put a mission request in the system. And like I said, you're going to want to be clear on what type of resources you need, and the deployment, when you want the deployment to occur, how long you want the deployment to occur. And we, like I said, understand that those things change. On this form, I could be, if there was one thing to make sure that you put in there is the point of contact in the email. A lot of times when I get the mission, there's a name and an email, but that name and an email isn't actually to the individual who needs the resources. It's to the liaison in the EOC, or it's to the city manager, or somebody who's actually already wearing five other hats. So if that individual is responsible for it, you can put them in, but please always make sure that you put a good point of contact, because we'll be reaching out. My main um, form of contact is going to be by phone, because I can get more questions answered quickly on the phone than I can by going through various emails and then waiting for the person to see the email. Um, Obviously, once the event has hit and you're in recovery mode, you're not sitting there at your desk looking at your emails. So you do normally have your phone, and you may have assigned somebody else to this task, but at least I can get a good point on what's going on there. So like I said, make sure that it's precise. They should include the personnel, what type of equipment. If you think that you're requesting an inspector, and you think that they're just gonna come with a tablet and a phone and a truck, they don't. You have to be specific in those requests on what type of supplies you need. And then, it's also helpful to know where they will be housed. If it is an area that's going to require an overnight stay for people to come in, it's not necessary at this point. It's something that we can work out as the request goes through. But I put in an example in here of, just kind of what would be good terminology to use in those requests. Again, it's expenses are paid by the assisting. Keep your receipts, please keep your receipts. Whether you're the sending jurisdiction or the receiving jurisdiction, FEMA is not going to reimburse anything. The state's not going to reimburse anything without an accurate accounting of what happened. So make sure you just keep all that stuff. So substantial damage determinations, you may be asked to provide and gather information for those. Sometimes this happens after the fact. We're just out there looking to see if the parcels are damaged substantially or not, and what the safety level is. But you may be asked to do some substantial damage determination, and if that is happening, it is the responsibility of the local official in that community to make sure that they're providing that instruction to the receiving person. So when the requests come in, we evaluate them. We use a couple different partners that we have, being the Structural Engineering Emergency Response Team, which is the SEER group, or the National Engineering Association. I'm probably going to get this wrong. I'm not sure if Bill's on the call, but they have a group that we'll reach out to that are volunteers, because they're not part of the Web EOC. They're not one of those 67 counties that are in the group. So they are considered volunteers, but they do have great resources depending on the area, how many we can deploy, and maybe what event they're already deploying to. But they have assisted us in the past. They've assisted us down in the Keys when the Keys had, I believe that was Michael back then, if I'm not mistaken. And they've also helped up in the Panhandle. So they are there. The American Institute of Architects, AIA, also is one of our partners, and Becky will reach out to me right away as well and say, hey, how can we help? What do you need? And it's great to have these volunteer partners, because we can use them to help with the initial, while we're wanting to make sure we save the inspectors and plans examiner resources that we have that are signed up in our list that actually need to be licensed in order to do that. So these two groups play a critical role in that. What you do not want to do is self-deploy. So we know that everybody has good intentions on wanting to help. But you can't just head down there and think that they're going to be able to use you, or that you're not part of a team that's organized, that has a single point of contact. They're looking for that organization because they've already got so many different groups down there helping. So what then will happen is, you will get an email blast asking if you have any staff that may be able to assist with different operations. I'll go through kind of what those forms look like on our website. We evaluate what the requests are, and then just send resources. You obviously are going to have elevated permitting levels after any storm. Like I said, I'm in an area that was hit by Ian. We're still working on roofs. People are still have not gotten some compensation for their roofs. So today, here we are, almost, probably 20 months after the storm. We're still at an elevated permitting height. You're not going to see you're not going to see that permitting increase right after the storm. It's going to be 3 to 4 weeks after the storm, when people have kind of gathered their things, made their emergency repairs to protect their belongings. So you do have a little bit of breathing room in there for the damage assessment, your preliminary damage assessment versus your full damage assessment. And then just kind of notifying all of our members that after 6 months, the reimbursement period ends, the EOC ends, this mutual aid ends. So if you think there's going to be a need for resources after 6 months, you have to come up with some type of contractual agreement to keep those resources flowing within your department. That's what we've basically done, is tried to keep a contract of additional resources to be able to make sure that we can plan for a longer term recovery period. Hiring additional staff is a good idea. Like I said, we were at 3 permitting staff. We're a small jurisdiction in Punta Gorda, and right now we're still at 7 permitting staff. So it's an ongoing process. And even though the permitting may slightly start declining, you still have all that cleanup to do when you just didn't have hands on deck to be able to kind of clean up and organize things. So you'll still have things to do. This is just a screenshot of the BOAF's webpage, and what you can look at there. We have our disaster resources link. We have some of our links in here. The governor's emergency order, obviously, once that declaration is out there, that's when you can get those additional resources. We actually still are under, if you're not in the area, you're actually still under a declaration from the governor right now, still from Ian. That declaration has diminished down to licensing. So we're still allowing general contractors to be able to do roofing permits. That's in the declaration. That's something that we're still doing. That declaration is renewed every 90 days. At the end of August this time, we'll be looking for an updated one. Obviously, under the declaration, we're still for unlicensed activity at a 3rd-degree felony, and the DBPR has been definitely more active in our area. But this is just a screenshot of where you can get those resources. This is if you went into our volunteer registration, what you would see, your name, just kind of getting information. Do you work for a government entity? Yes or no. If you answer no, you can still sign up on the form. You're just not going to be reimbursed. It would be more of a volunteer type situation. So, but if that's something that you want to do, we're more than happy to receive those types of help. I do have questions in here to make sure that your manager and your supervisor know that you've signed up, because I may be reaching out to them separately, and it's good to know that they already know that you're looking to help. Also, just making sure you understand that you've read these guidelines in there, just because you are going into an area that may have been totally devastated. So you may be staying in a base camp with a cot. They'll have meals for you, there'll be showers, but the accommodations may be primitive. So just kind of knowing that it's going to be hot. We are in Florida, and just kind of going through these, you can look at them on our website and be able to just kind of know what to bring, what not to bring. I reach out to each individual that's being deployed anyways, so they know exactly what can be expected of them when they arrive. Again, just being prepared. Here's more information on that. Just knowing that you're not going to the Hilton. That's not where you're going to be staying. So kind of a picture of a base camp that we had in our area. The main area and the sleeping areas, there's also a tent for food. There's the trailers. Most of the trailers are for showers, and they'll have a laundry facility there. They'll have everything contained in these base camps. So just kind of some more information here. We are pretty resilient in Florida. We do know we have some people, like we saw with Ian, that decided that it wasn't a good idea to leave. I think we've learned a lot of Floridians, even the older Floridians that are pretty well seasoned, have learned their lesson on making sure that they're maybe not out of the wind debris area, but at least out of the flooding, the significant flooding areas, because what we've seen is the hydrostatic and hydrodynamic loads on the water, and what it does is just unbearable, unbelievable, really. So just take heed. So we have the Disaster Recovery Act, also the DRRA, from Section 1206 provides reimbursement for all those building code and floodplain activities. They include inspections and substantial determinations. This will also include plan review if you have the need for that. This is good for a period of 180 days after the event. You need to apply within this period, and if you are outside of the period, you cannot apply for reimbursement. A lot of these activities, as long as you've been documenting things, as long as you have your payroll and you know where you've been putting people, and you have those FEMA daily logs, and after you're done with that, you've got good record keeping, you're going to be able to qualify for reimbursement under Section 1206. So you want to be able to know what's out there for reimbursement. Like I said, this does include all those compliance, but they are limited to 180 days. If you do not apply within that time period, you're not going to get a dime. So make sure that you have this written down. Maybe it might not be you applying, it may be your financial person applying, but at least you've got to get that application in there for it to be considered. It has to be a major disaster declaration. It can't be a smaller one, but these funds are available for those as you move forward. I just kind of put these in there because these are good classes that can help your staff be prepared. So on the floridadisaster.org website, there are FEMA classes from the National Incident Management Institute that you can get with incident command classes. So there are the kind of prerequisites, but this one right here is a local damage assessment one. These classes are free. You can go and just click on the links that are in the website there. It's a it's an on-demand type class. There's nothing you have to schedule. This particular one doesn't require any prerequisites, but these classes are great just to get some of the nomenclature down. Even if we're familiar with all of these, it's good to get refamiliarized with them, because as an incident comes through, it may have been a while. You may not remember what all of their acronyms are, because obviously we all know FEMA has a million acronyms, and we want to make sure that you're familiar with everything. So when your incident commander comes in and asks you something, any of your staff know what's going on out there. So this one's 559, the local damage assessment. Like I said, all you have to do is go to floridadisaster.org, create yourself a CERT login, and you can take any of these classes. It'll give you the class. Once you take the class, you'll have the ability to take that final exam, and it will print a certificate, which is helpful to have for all your staff to be knowledgeable. Here are some other ones that I thought were good ideas to have. The 700 and the 800 are more of the initial framework, initial incident command, good ones to have everyone in your office to take. The 700 and the 800 are more introductory type classes. So you're gonna get more of how the structure's set up, because obviously we know that these incident command procedures are very structured, and you wanna be able to have your staff feel like they, although they may not remember everything, when it comes down to it, they've been introduced to it and kind of know what to expect. When we send people out on a, whether it's preliminary or a full damage assessment team, the preliminaries sometimes are just one person in a vehicle going down the road. But a lot of times it's two people. So having those people in the office, whether or not it's someone immediately in the building department or somebody that's out in the field helping, is very it's very good to have them know. The 100 and the 200 are more of a management, a little bit more in depth on the actual processes. So it's up to you whether you have all your staff do a 100 and 200 on the actual incident command system, but the 700 and 800 are great to have everybody doing. The 100 and 200 are a little more involved and take a little bit more time, but are also good to have as well. I know that when we've done the incident command centers in the past, we've had areas of distribution or end pods out there for tarps and things, and it's always good to have flyers and or somebody who's familiar on building out at any of those distribution centers. If it is on, say, a barrier island where there's limited access, it's good for those residents to have like one point where they know they can get most of their answers or their questions answered out there. Maybe you have one permitting person, or maybe you're doing emergency roof repair type permits out there just to get structures closed in. While the weather's out there, it's always good to have them. So having familiarity with these terms is just good overall. Just kind of another resource, our governor's website is where you're going to find all those executive orders. Sometimes it can get pretty confusing on the website for the governor, only because once you go into the executive orders, he's not just issuing these for events that are coming out there, hurricane events. There's executive orders for all kinds of things. So you'll need to go through them, and you'll want to make sure that you read them thoroughly to make sure you understand them. If you ever had any question on whether or not what's covered or not, you could always reach out, send us an email, or give me a call. However you want to do it, I'm here to be able to answer those questions. Like I said, we still currently right now are under executive order, an extension of executive order, the original executive order of 22-218, which is now 24-137 for Ian, for being able to provide additional resources. I did put this in here because ICC has been working on a class as well, When Disaster Strikes. It's an institute that they're putting together. Bill Bracken is kind of heading up that. Was part of the team that was looking at the topics, the content, and the training and testing that went involved in this about a year and a half ago. It utilizes the ATC 20 and ATC 45 standards. ATC 20 is for earthquakes, and ATC 45 is more on the windborne events. But these are this is a good class that will teach you the programs and the expectations for each one of these. It's good to know the criteria, because I can tell you, when you go out and do major, minor, destroyed out in the field, and you have people out there resulting things, it's amazing how at the end of the day, the destroyeds are pretty clear, the non-affected are pretty clear, the major damage is usually pretty close, but when it comes to minor or affected, you have people with their own opinion, and they're using their best knowledge, best guess, and their knowledge from what they've learned in the past to make those determinations. But you'll find out that even though you provide guidance in the beginning, that you may have people that are reporting things in those areas a little differently. So you'll still want to get some good guidelines down. FEMA does have a couple good publications that have some flip charts that are water, that deal with whether it's a major, minor, based on the water level for the flooding, and they also have it based on the wind category. Soffit missing, where there's water intrusion, someone may say it's minor, somebody else might have said, oh, well, I just put it as affected. So as long as you're gathering the information and recording it somewhere, it's information to follow up on. FEMA does want to see those reports, especially in the case of a flood. They're wanting to see who's been displaced and can they get them in some type of accommodation as quickly as possible. Because we've learned, and even this class will teach you, when you're able to stay within the community and recover within your own community, where your kids go to this school down the street and the school's opening. If you're in a mobile home village, I don't know, or a FEMA village 8 miles away, even though it's only 8 miles, it severely affects the way the recovery process works, the way the mental recovery of individuals, just not being around those things that they see every day. So they have come up with better processes to allow those RVs possibly in the driveways, and or setting up as close as possible to keep the people in the community, because the community people there will help each other. Neighbors help neighbors. So it's just a win-win trying to keep people there. But you'll see more on these classes rolling out probably within the next 4 to 6 months. More trainers, more availability for you to get classes throughout your local region. Another one I just want to say is you're never alone. We are here to help you, whether or not it's me personally or the rest of the executive committee who's on the mutual aid committee. We are here to help make sure that you get your resources. We do want to make sure that you follow the proper protocol. We can't respond and help with our resources if you don't request it through the web EOC. If you're going to call me, that's basically where I'm going to direct you to. I don't mind directing people to that, but that is where it has to come through, because our contract is with the state DEM. So when I get that call from the recovery section chief, it's going to be this particular community needed this. I've also then had that same conversation that you should be expecting a request from the city of Fort Myers or town of Fort Myers Beach. You should be, you know, and so we've kind of played it back and forth. It's great to keep the lines of communication open. So they're looking out for it, and we're both planning at the same time to keep the resources moving. And I guess at this point, I can take any questions if there are any questions on the process. And we appreciate everyone who volunteers. I cannot tell you enough. I don't know if you were at the conference, but sometimes people think that I just have this bucket of people that have volunteered on our website. And I get that everybody's busy because I'm in the same situation. But with the last Ian, knowing how devastating it was and how many resources they needed there, I can tell you that I had no more than 12 people that literally were able to help throughout the process that signed up. We did then recruit people along the way, but the more that actually put it out there, sometimes things don't work out. Like with Ian, by the time they really needed people, it was like Thanksgiving, and who wants to leave at Thanksgiving? So that kind of put a little damper on it. You've got the holidays coming up, and you know you're still recovering, but we had some great people that decided to help. And I just want to let everybody know we appreciate everyone who even considers helping. And we just encourage all the jurisdictions, if you can, send somebody. It's a great learning opportunity. I cannot tell you that my area was hit really hard with Charlie, and the people who are still that are employed there now, and even the people who come visit, cannot say enough about how they felt as a community that they were just loved by everyone who came and helped them, because they just couldn't have done it without it. But I am ready for questions if there's any questions, Celeste.
There is one. Did you mention the time of deployment, 2 weeks minimum?
It's not a 2-week minimum deployment. I would have to say, it depends on what the jurisdiction's requesting, but the state looks for a 2-week deployment. That's what their goal is. Because if you think on it from the receiving jurisdiction's perspective, you're getting somebody housing, you're getting them set up, you're also training them, and the person's getting to know the geographical area that they're at. So it takes them a good 2 to 3 days to get logistically like productive in the area. So I know that 2 weeks has always been the goal, to send somebody. If for some reason we have no resources, we really don't ask for anybody to come less than a complete 7-day deployment, because like I said, by the time you arrive and you get that first initial training on the first day and you meet everybody, you're really not even providing any resources on day 1. Day 2, you're kind of given an area and you're still not familiar with the area, maybe, and you're still getting to know the area and what your responsibilities are. It's really day 3 where you're like kicking in gear and really going out there and not needing any assistance and really going for it. So 2 weeks is the goal. I would say no less than 7 days. But yeah, I mean, just as an example of you're not productive the entire 2 weeks, and it's hard on the jurisdiction if we continually keep changing out people and they're using their resources who are familiar with the area to train the new people. But yes. So if there are no other questions, I just want to thank everybody. If you could leave any comments about what you'd like, maybe want me to cover in the future. I am working with the state to see if there's any additional classes we can provide. The state does have a class that I believe anyone who's registered through the web EOC system can take on how to fill out those forms. I believe whether it's the recovery section doing that or somebody else from the state, through the Web EOC, they do put out classes throughout the year to keep people updated, and also to keep them updated if there's any changes, because it is a computer program and it does go through updates. Does anybody have any like comments on a program that they use for damage assessment out in the field? A software program that they've had really good success with that they'd like to share with anybody? Or I know Charlotte County was telling me that they had a program, it was the Survey 123, but they were able to incorporate it in with their permitting software and be able to pull data off of that, which is amazing, because, you know, taking it from one spreadsheet to being able to actually put it in your permitting software where you can manage it a little better is great. But we're always looking for extra programs like that.
Someone said we originally had ARM 360 and now Crisis Track.
Okay, and I've actually used Crisis Track as well, and that's a good program. Obviously, most of them are GIS based. So if you are considering one of those, not only can you hand type in the address, but if you're sending somebody who's not familiar with the area, you need that GIS reference point, because those homes may not be in the same location that they were when the road was platted out on the county property appraisers websites. So having the GIS aerials of what it was before and where you're standing with whether it's an intersection or some type of landmark that gives you a good starting point, pinning it on a GIS program, which I know both of those do, is extremely helpful to make sure you're not going down the same street or duplicating your processes, which I've experienced in the past as well. You try to zone people out into different zones, try to get a GIS map, which these programs will usually do as well. So that way you can have someone take zone 1, zone 2, or zone A, B, and you've got different groups working different areas to be able to clear an area and move to taking a look at your entire jurisdiction as a whole, as opposed to the areas that you know are more vulnerable. Some of your vulnerability assessments will kind of, in your areas, will kind of, you'll know historically what areas don't fare as well through some of these storms, but depending on how rural your area is, sometimes it can be a challenge. I know when we sent people up to Panama City for help up there, obviously the beach areas where you couldn't see any of the structures anymore, some of them, like even the foundations, had moved. Same thing with Fort Myers Beach, and it's hard to tell where those structures were if you don't have a GIS map, and them being able to work in an offline mode and then being able to go at the end of the day back maybe to some central point to be able to upload the data is helpful, because the EOC will be looking for that data to be uploaded normally at about 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. They're going to be trying to push numbers out to their council, their commission, what the numbers look like. Number one, to see how the community is doing. Number two, it's to see, depending on like Ian, there wasn't a question, but you get to like a smaller storm where maybe your community doesn't have as much impact, you're really going to be counting on those numbers to see if you even get over the threshold to qualify for assistance. So getting those numbers and making sure you know which ones are affected, that software on the financial side behind it can give you those percentages to be able to tell your EOC if they weren't able to do it through the infrastructure side or had some damaged infrastructure and could add it to the damage totals that you have from the damage assessment. Between the two of them, you may be able to get a declaration for your area to make sure you pass that threshold to qualify for assistance.
Okay. I don't see any other, oh wait, John Barrios wants to speak. He has his hand up. John, you're on the mic.
I'm sorry, I think I did that inadvertently. My apologies.
Okay.
Well, hopefully you were, I appreciate you attending, John, and hopefully this was, good for you. And if there's anything, like I said, that anybody would like more, like a deeper dive into any of these, any of
There is
these
a survey.
opportunities, let me know.
There is a survey that's gonna go out, that's gonna pop up at the end of the session. Complete it. Please complete it so that we may be able to continue bringing you the content you're interested in. So thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.